Hi, welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I made an inspiration folder for Magz Lockley's 1000 subscriber giveaway, and I'll put a link to her videos in the description box. What I'm doing now is I'm just cutting down some manila folders. There's 2 of them, just making sure that they're the size that will fit into the envelope that I plan on using. And I did cut the 2 of them down, and I'm just trimming again to make sure that the inside fits nicely. What I plan on doing is making the inside one a pocket, so I do cut it in half so that it will sit inside as a pocket, so I can slip some things into there. Okay, what I'm going to do is the background, just gluing some different tissue papers. That's the Tim Holtz tissue paper. I've got some doilies that I'm using. Just ripping it apart, sticking it on with a glue stick. We have some plain white tissue paper. Just something to break up the plainness of the manila folder. This is actually a Christmas tissue paper. It's got some gold and silver, red and blue stars on it. I thought that would actually make a nice background. Putting lots of glue on, make sure it sticks. Magz is asking for interesting magazine cutouts. She has a journal which she calls Big Bear, and she does a lot of magazine collage work in there. Has some really interesting pieces. If you haven't seen any of her videos, pop over. I'm sure she'd appreciate people watching her videos. As I said, she does have some very interesting collages. And just adding some gel medium over the top now, just to make sure that it's all stuck down and that it is ready for the layer of paint that goes on. Fortunately, it's summer here in Australia and it is quite warm, so things do dry fairly quickly here, which can be good and it can be bad as well. And doing the same again for the inside pocket. And again with the gel medium over the top. Now what I'm doing is I'm just covering the inside of the manila folder, just for a little bit of extra strength. Just use the ruler just to burnish it down, make sure it's quite flat. Now I did start to trim it with some scissors and thought it would probably be easier to do it with a Stanley knife or a knife and ruler. Then I realised I hadn't actually got a cutting mat underneath, so I popped the cutting mat underneath. I do actually prefer using a ruler and a blade to trim my things. I find it a lot easier than pulling out the cutting blade slicer thing. And now I've just got some paint here. It's just some folk art acrylic paint. There's burnt sienna, burnt umber, white and a magenta. And all I'm doing is mixing the three colours into the burnt sienna as I'm going, just a bit of blending. The burnt sienna is sort of the main colour, and just blending the others to give it a little bit of texture. And I'm not being too particularly careful, just adding a little bit here and there as I go, and pop that aside to dry while I go and repeat the process with the front cover. And same process again, using the burnt sienna and adding the others just as a little bit of texture. Does dry quite quickly too, and you can see that the background, the tissue paper is showing through, and just adding a little bit more of the other colours, the white, magenta, burnt umber, just to break it up a little bit more. Now I'm stapling the pocket to the front and back cover. And I thought I'd add a little bit of tape just to protect the staples and the edges of the folder. And this is where I realised I should have done this before I painted, but I'll just simply paint over it. It's not too much of a problem. Just adding a little bit more paint. And now just touching up that masking tape so it matches the rest of the folder. What I did do, I did actually spray with some gold paint as well on the front and back. Now I'm adding some lace. This lace does have an adhesive strip at the back, but I did add some craft glue just to make sure it did stick. Just having a look at what ephemera I can stick on. Some embellishments there, just a little doily. That doily was already coloured with the bits of brown. And just distressing the edges of the banner. I did forget to distress the edges of that little square panel, and the little clock. Using a walnut stain distressing. Now I'm trying to put some distress ink around the edges of the little birds that I have, but they're just too small, so I got out a marker to use around the edges. using some foam squares on the backs just to pop them up as well. I did add some gloss varnish to the back and front too, just to give it a little bit of protection. Excuse me. And I've made a label with my label maker. It says inspiration, and I did add a little bit of burnt sienna across there as well, just so it toned in a little bit better with the paint on the background. I thought the white was a little bit too stark. And I'm adding some craft glue just to make sure it does actually stick down. And I will use my Uniball black pen to just put an edge to it. Right, now it's ready to fill. And what I did do is I put some little clips up the top which will hold the little plastic bags that I've got there in place. I've put some jelly prints, some magazine pages, there's some napkins. In each of the little bags there's some cutouts from magazines as well. So I hope that gives her some inspiration for some of the pages she's going to do, and she enjoys that. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.